as you can see in this picture, you got Duane Bachman way to my left, and you've got Cliff Alexander in the middle, and Duane and I are going to spend the next few minutes, or whatever it takes, having a conversation with Cliff Alexander.
Well,
big story. Yes, sir. You're the man. Start at the beginning. Start at the beginning. Early Piqua stuff. What do you remember?
Early Piqua. Gosh, I remember going to North Street School, and everybody walked in those days, and I lived on Park Avenue Hill, so we walked down the hill, and I had a friend that I would holler for, and when I yelled his nickname, why, the whole neighborhood heard, and it woke up everybody at about 7:45 in the morning, and out he came, and we went off to school. And North Street School was about a half a mile away, I suppose, and it was I thought a little scary at first, but it turned out to really be fun, and I liked all the teachers. That's pretty rare.
That's a
but
good start.
I really did.
Good start. And then it was on to Wilder.
Wilder, then at the 7th grade and 8th grade and 9th grade were at Wilder, and then on to Piqua High School.
Yeah.
And that was really scary, going to Piqua High School.
Well, of course it was, my God.
Yeah, but after the first day, again, why, it turned out to be fun.
And what year did you graduate from Piqua High School?
1952.
52.
Gee.
Absolutely. And then it was on to Miami University.
On to Miami University, where I met this guy from Houston, Ohio, by the name of Gordy Wise.
Yeah,
and we graduated together from Miami.
Hey, do you realize that if you go back to that year at Miami, that we lived side by side, you with Bob Vess, and me with my buddy Tom Moore.
Tom Moore, that's right.
We shared a bathroom. It was in the middle, and our rooms were...
Right.
Cliff, that was 60 years ago.
No.
You believe that?
Are we that old? I guess we are.
Are we that old? I guess that's...
Boy, those were fun times, though.
They were.
Yeah.
What do you remember about that experience of living in the lodges and commuting, sort of commuting up to campus, way down south?
Walking up to campus across this huge, long field.
Yeah.
And we had to take breakfast at the girls' dorm. And
you know what? They made us go all the way up to Ogden for a long time, and that was really super far.
Yeah.
And then they finally gave in and said you guys could have your meals at Hamilton Hall with the girls.
With the girls, yeah.
Yeah, but do you remember how close we sat to the girls at Hamilton Hall?
Close enough to know that they didn't look too great in the early morning with no makeup on.
Well, seriously though, I remember they put us off in the corner. There were several boys' tables, and there was a gulf. There was a gap. We couldn't get too close to the girls.
Too close, no.
That was 1953, 54. Yeah, times have changed. Or no co-ed dorms in those years. Oh, man. But Miami, Sigma Nu for you.
Gosh, it's a great experience. I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy the studying, and I wasn't a very good student, but I got through it.
Absolutely.
Thanks to some of my friends that I studied with.
Well, gee whiz.
Gordy was always a very good student and a good teacher even then.
You're too kind. You're too kind. That had to have given you one heck of a foundation that you carried into life. Just what did you take from Miami? What did it implant in you that generated you?
The greatest gift I think that I received at Miami was the ability to talk to all sorts of different people and appreciate how different some of the views were. And I didn't argue my way through college by any manner of means, but just to hear the other person's response to certain situations, gee, I learned a lot. I learned far more than I ever thought I would.
For our time, it was something of a melting pot, wasn't it?
It really was.
For our time.
It was.
Really was. Well, that launched it. Duane.
Well, Gordy, first of all, it's a pleasure and a privilege to be to share the microphone with Cliff Alexander and Gordon Wise. This is a very, very special time. We talked about Cliff Alexander. Tell us a little bit about meeting your wife Joyce and about those years. We understand that you may have been junior high sweethearts.
Well, she was a freshman, and I was either a junior or senior. I can't remember. I think I was a junior. But at any rate, club co-ed. Every Saturday night we'd go to the Y and have club co-ed. And so I'm standing there talking to one of the guys, and this girl walks in, and she recognizes the fellow that I was talking to and came over to talk to him, and she stuck her foot under mine and said, excuse me, you're standing on my foot. Of course, I was embarrassed, but that's how we met each other. And so that started a lifelong affiliation, I guess you might say, by, excuse me, you're standing on my foot.
That's quite a story. And again, your wife is very, very special, Cliff, and I think we all know Joyce from everything she's done to support the things that you've done.
Well, she certainly has. She's been very supportive, and we just had a wonderful relationship together. Done a lot of things. Her music's taken her a lot of places, and I couldn't sing a lick even in high school. I had to go in at 12:30 before a 1 o'clock choir class, and my friend Alan Mextroth and we wrote our names on the list of choir members. At the bottom, we put our names down. And fortunately, it was a new choir director that year, and he came in, and he thought we were already in the choir, you know, so we didn't have to sing for him.
So you were in the choir, but you didn't sing.
That's right. And once he heard my voice, he said, you don't want to, you guys just sort of mouth the words.
Yeah, that's cool.
And that was a fun time, though. I enjoyed being in a choir, even though I couldn't sing. It was great.
Now let's talk about Crayex. I can't say that in all the research that I've done and talking to Mimi or Gordy, I can't trace the roots of Crayex. How about bringing us up to date on how it started and who some of the people were that helped you get the Crayex Corporation started?
Well, I was working in Covington for General Films at the time, and I'd always had the feeling that I wanted to start my own business, and I didn't know quite how to do it, but I had a good friend at the Citizens National Bank and Trust Company, which is now Miami Citizens, in Robert M. Davis. And I went to Bob Davis and asked him, and he said, well, explain what type of business this would be and what you'd be doing. And I went through the explanation, and he said, you know, I'm going to loan you the money for this, and if you can do half as good as you've described, this business will be successful. And so he loaned me the money, and we started out.
What was the year that CRAX became a reality?
1972.
1972.
Yeah, gosh, that was a long time ago, Duane.
It certainly is, Cliff.
Yeah,
Certainly is, Cliff.
yeah.
But boy, you have ended up being so successful, and you've shared so much of your resources. So that's the
Wow.
CRAX story, and I
That's
think
it.
those of us who are on this panel recognize the contributions that Bob Davis made to this community.
Right. And I might say that my father-in-law, Joyce's dad, came up with the name CRAX. And he said, well, your dad's name is C. Ray Alexander, C-R-A, and C-R-A-Y, and extrusion is what you're going to do. So the name CRAX.
That's it. I was not aware of that.
Yeah.
That in itself is interesting.
Yeah, Les McDonald really came up with a good one there. It's worked well, and we've had a good life at CRAX. And,
That's a pretty
good
darn
time.
creative way that you guys came up with that name.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the rest was almost history in the sense of the success that became and remains. That's super. You know, our paths crossed again in some pretty important ways not too long after your CRAX adventure began, when our buddy Duane Bachman came to town, and let's see, that would have been about 75.
Yes, it was.
And found that the high school had been declared to be a problem and was heading toward causing even more problems. And there had been several efforts at passing a bond issue to build a new high school. And there was one, I think, even after you got here. Wasn't there an effort in '76?
There may have been, Gordon. There may have been. I think it did not get community approval 4 times before we got it. Okay.
Yeah, it failed 4 times. I
Exactly, but this is where the Chamber of Commerce and Cliff Alexander got involved. And so by 77, heading into 78, you guys had committed to the single project of the Chamber. And you were the head of the president of the Chamber, or at least of the Community Affairs Committee. I remember dealing with them. And so basically you guys took this on.
Yeah, that was our project, really.
And I remember, Cliff, that you did something that is probably so unique in the history of any Chamber of Commerce. Every committee was told that you only got one project. That's to help pass this bond issue.
Exactly.
And every committee did just that. And when we look at that 35 years later, obviously it paid off, because the industrial and business community supported the issue 110%.
Yes, they did. They did.
Well, the role that you had in that was enormous. I can remember in putting together a campaign organization, creating a manufacturing division. And guess who chaired the manufacturing division? Now, if that sounds like token activity, wasn't. That meant twisting arms. That meant enlisting your cohorts from the manufacturing segment of the community. And not only that, but getting them to be influential with their employees.
Oh, well.
Hey, this had failed 4 times.
So you and Dr. Graham coached me very well. That's for sure.
Well, let's go back a little bit, Cliff. Without you as our leader, we would have been dead in the water. I don't think there's any question about it. But one of the first things you did was commission a study by Gordon Wise and Glenn Graham. And even though they would minimize their role, they played an important part, because they came up with the campaign plan. And it's a campaign plan that I want to explain very briefly. I remember going to a meeting, and Gordon and Glenn said, "We have our campaign plan here with us today." And as superintendent, I thought, my gosh, these guys have got the answer, and that's going to take the pressure off all of us.
That's
and
right.
by gosh, they did have the answer, and it's something that every Board of Education should have learned from, because Gordon and Glenn came up with 5 reasons people will vote yes, 5 reasons people will vote no, and Gordon says, those are the issues. Those are 10 issues. Forget about anything else. And Gordon, what did those issues
You're
tell
too
us?
kind. Well, it told us, in short, it told us, among other things, that the community wasn't really too excited about what we think of as pure education issues. You know, like the kids deserve it, and oh, they'll do so much better if they have a nice modern facility. No, the issues were economic. The issues were economic: attracting industry, holding industry, attracting desirable residents, and well, hey, also using free land. That was an economic issue too. But there were a lot of people who played key roles there in addition to you in the manufacturing committee. Wally White, remember Wally? Ran the library.
Yeah,
He
the
put
library.
together an army of between 400 and 450 people, volunteers, willing to work the neighborhoods. Oh man, just no substitute for that.
Yeah.
And how about Jack Chalk? He organized the pastors, the ministerial association, and out of that came some phenomenal. I better shut up or I'll spend 2 hours talking about that.
No, go ahead.
But,
That's
well,
good point. I'd
Your
forgotten that.
leadership with the chamber, see, was just driving all that. Bev Pratt, the role that she played as the chair of that committee, oh my, it was an adventure.
Yeah, it was.
I ran into Bev Pratt a couple weeks ago, and we were talking. And any time that Bev and I get together, we talk about the bond issue, and she played a very key role. And she and I came to the conclusion, Cliff, I want you to agree or disagree. When this community supported the bond issue, that changed the attitude of this community towards everything, starting with the bond issue.
Absolutely. That was a turning point in our community. It was a huge turning point. Public spirit was the highest it had ever been, at least in my recollection.
Mine too. And the next day after the bond issue, you couldn't have gone in Piqua and found anybody who voted against the bond issue. That's
right.
how excited they were.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. It did pass by 68% to 32%. So the job got done.
Yeah.
Hey, let me take you to another campaign that you had a hand in. Just a few years after that, my recollection turns on a phone call from you. You said, Gordy, there's still another battle to fight here. The community needs a swimming pool.
Oh yeah.
You know, the hollow was gone.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
There had not been a pool. And
What was that slogan we had? Support our long-awaited swimming pool or something. I forget.
Supporters Splash.
Splash.
Splash. That was it.
Supporters
Splash.
of Piqua's long-awaited swimming hole. I think
Yeah,
Lucy
something
Fest
like
came
that.
up with that phrase to use. It
Yeah,
became
yeah.
Splash.
Splash. Yeah.
Yeah, and once again, where did it start? Right here.
Well,
We need a swimming pool, and the chamber was behind it.
And again,
Yeah.
Gordy,
Wow.
back to the community. Since that bond issue, I've always said, when there's a need in Piqua, the people in Piqua will support it, and that's exactly what we can do as we trace the last 35 years.
that's true. That's true.
And as those needs were identified, guess who was always sitting there ready to jump in and say, yeah, we can, right here, Cliff
Yeah.
Alexander.
Well,
Yes.
there were a lot of
denied.
others.
Well,
That was,
Cliff, there's another aspect of your career and your interest in education. A couple years after we passed the bond issue, I remember we started the Piqua Education Foundation. Remember that? And I
Yeah,
believe
I'm
the
sure
first
proud
year
of
we
that.
put our group together, we give away, what, $18,000?
Yeah.
And I've been told that in 19 years, now we have given the graduates of Piqua High School $2.8 million in scholarships.
Yeah.
Cliff, that was very exciting for me, you, and for a lot of other people.
Absolutely. It's been a marvelous thing for our schools. And, but it's the community.
Oh, it took
It
it.
brought
Yeah.
the community got behind the schools.
But
You know,
Cliff,
we didn't do it ourselves.
Somebody has to set the tone. You were the
Wow.
guy that set the tone, had the respect, and the people would say, if Cliff Alexander is for it, so am I. I believe that
Wow.
sincerely.
Amen.
Well, we certainly got terrific community support. There's no doubt about that. And I think that was a turning point in our community.
Yeah.
I think they've supported just about every good project, reasonable project
That's right.
since.
That's right.
And that's
Yeah.
it's
Our
just-
community wanted to be convinced that they had the information. Once they had the information, they said yes.
Mhm.
And then,
Then
where did he go from there?
Then Cliff Alexander, I don't want to call this icing on the cake, but the stadium project is something I will never forget.
Mhm.
And if it hadn't been for you, we may not have the most beautiful facilities of any high school in the state of Ohio, maybe the country. Talk a little bit
Yeah.
about your interest in that stadium.
Well, we certainly needed
Yes, we did.
something, and it just seemed like that was a project that I know that we needed it, and the timing was right.
And I
we
can
just-
tell you a little bit about how it got started, because there had been efforts on the part of previous people to get some impetus for a stadium, and they weren't having any luck. So somebody said, I'm going to call Cliff Alexander and some community leaders to lunch at the Piqua Country Club. And at that point in time, you came to the fore again, and you lend a lot of support, including some financial support. And at that point in time, I think then people said, this stadium's going to become a reality.
Yeah, well, we had a great committee. We really did. They only messed up one time, that I remember.
And what was that?
That's when somebody said something about Alexander Stadium, and I said, no. You got to promise me that you're not going to name it Alexander Stadium. It's going to be the Piqua Stadium. And you said, well, you didn't say, well, okay, we'll do what you say, but you said, well, we'll see about it or something like that. Anyway, he put me off.
Really?
Yeah, the next thing I know, out of the blue, it becomes Alexander Stadium. And I was pretty upset about it, you know.
I remember you called me about it.
Yeah,
and
I
asked
called you
whether
and
or not
raised a little king, you
I,
know, and you said, well, it's just the way it's going to be,
That's
Cliff.
exactly what I told you. Exactly what I told you. And there's no sense arguing about it.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
signed, sealed, and delivered. And that was
That's right.
only appropriate.
And you guys broke your promise, is
Yes,
what it
sir.
amounts to.
Promises made,
They had
promises
their
kept.
fingers
Not that
crossed
time.
behind their backs, boy. That was the whole 9 yards.
But Cliff, let's talk about another aspect of that stadium. I talk to a lot of people because I'm still involved in the athletic situation at Piqua High School. How many people who come to our stadium? How many people come to the playoffs who have never been to Piqua before? And they say, what a magnificent facility. And then you know what I can tell them? Not one tax dollar was used for right now what I think is a $4 million facility. And most people won't believe it, but it's
Yeah,
true.
It is true. That is true.
That was,
Yeah, that was a great community outreach. They really.
well, it's something that will stand for posterity as this is Piqua. This
Yeah.
is Piqua.
Yeah.
One sort of last question, Cliff. If you were giving advice to a young person who is kind of emerging as a potential community leader, what would you advise that young man or that young lady?
To get involved.
Okay.
Just to get involved with an organization like the Chamber of Commerce, but it can be not only the Chamber of Commerce, it could be a school board or any kind of community project where you can interact with other people. And for a young person just coming up,
Yeah.
you need the guidance that you get from the older people that are already doing the work and pulling the load. But any community that's going to be a successful community is one that can recharge their leaders every year. Every year you've got to have more young people coming into the picture.
You certainly have laid down an example of involvement, quality involvement that is to be mimicked, to be admired. And you know, Duane, a living legend right here between us.
Absolutely.
Oh, I know. You
guys.
can say no, but it's a darn church
Absolutely,
guy.
Gordon. He has set the bar very, very high.
Yeah, and there is a quote that is from Cliff that appears on the big plaque out at the Alexander Stadium, Kirkfield. Okay, and you've got that right there.
I've got it here.
This is
Yeah.
Cliff's quote. Now just listen up.
There's only one way to end poverty, reduce crime, cure illness, ensure peace, and create opportunity. That one single way is education.
Captured it, didn't he? Hey, let me say on behalf of Duane Bachman and myself that we have surely enjoyed this chat, fireside or otherwise. God bless you, buddy.
Thank you, fellas.
You are
Thank you much.
a jewel. Thanks for watching.